Have you got any particular sort of running projects going on at the moment you want to bring up? Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It is day 3. It's Wednesday. It's the 7th of January and we are here. And I'm in the company today of a great man, Mr. Tom Slater, who's here from Spikes Online. Tom, welcome to the new show. Welcome. I suppose we can still say Happy New Year, can't we, at this point? It's only the 7th. So it's Wednesday. It's just after 7 o'clock. We are here with all manner of news for you. We've got all sorts of front pages to show you. There's a couple of incredible stories involving the police, South Yorkshire Police for one, but also West Midlands Police as well. People are calling for the resignation or the sacking of the chief constable there because of that terrible business between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv. We've got Donald Trump laughing it up over in the United States of America, impersonating a trans weightlifter. We've also got Keir Starmer with a coalition of the Willies, as I like to call them, over in Paris yesterday. He went over there to do some deal to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Nobody knows why. Nobody thinks we've got any boots to put on the ground. And there's a picture of them all standing about. That bloke Carney from Canada, Emmanuel Macron was there, you know, the Merz, the German chancellor, and a whole bunch of other bozos. And nobody cares what they're doing. Nobody cares what they think. And nobody cares what they plan to do. But they all think they're very, very important. They're very self-important, is all I know. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the latest from Venezuela and Greenland, of course, as well. Also, Storm Goretti has apparently knocked out all of the power lines at Paddington Station in London. So if you're going to try and get to Heathrow from central London today, you're not going to be able to do it. There's no Heathrow Express. There is no Elizabeth line either. And no doubt there'll be plenty of snow damage and snow coverage in different parts of the country as well. So if you've got any snow reports you want to tell us about, please do send them in. Also, we're going to be talking about Keir Starmer's latest plan to renew himself. Because, of course, everything's going terribly badly wrong. They've come up with a new idea in Downing Street to try and reconnect with the voters. We'll tell you about all of that as well. And also we'll look at Britain's favourite dog names, because they're in the papers too today. And finally, one for the road. A lot of the front pages today, Tom, are talking about this situation around driving. Yesterday we heard that they wanted to basically give eye tests to anybody over 70, just in case they can't see very well, crashing into each other. Today we're hearing all about all sorts of plans to change the drink driving rules, but people are saying it's going to kill off rural pubs. The Telegraph have got that on their front page, as have the Sun, as have, I think, the Daily Mirror as well. Basically, pubs face a new assault under Labour's plans to cut the drink drive limit. Ministers are considering toughening rules in England and Wales and could align them with Scotland, where one drink can put a driver over the limit. Now, apparently in Scotland, since they brought this new limit in, this new lower limit, they've actually had more cases of drunk driving.
It goes to show, isn't it, the unintended consequences of all of this. And the fact that, you know, in England and Wales, we've got comparatively low deaths from drunk driving, certainly if you rack it up against Europe, where these levels are oftentimes as low as they are in Scotland. It just doesn't make any sense. And also, when you think about what hammering the pub trade is taking at the moment, I'm sure you've been talking about the business rates and all these other things. this is just another body blow, isn't it?
It is saying basically this is a death knell for country pubs across Britain, and we know he likes to spend a bit of time in country pubs. Labour has no connection to how real life works. But it is true. I mean, the problem is I've always been a bit kind of in two minds about this as well, because I've always thought if you are going to drink, you probably shouldn't drive at all. And it might be easier and simpler if they just said, if you are going to drive, don't drink. You know, you don't just have one drink or don't have 2 pints or two half pints, because it's different for everybody, isn't it? Depending on who, on what size your body is, what your metabolism is like, how much you've eaten, all of those things, you know, whether you've been running or whether you've been, you know, sitting around doing nothing, whether you've been smoking. I mean, everybody's affected differently. So if you say, you know, you can have certain amount of milligrams of alcohol in your blood, for different people, it means different things, isn't it?
It's one of the things where some drunk drivers are better than others, and some of them aren't necessarily even drunk. That's one slippage that we've seen over the years, actually. We used to talk about drunk driving. Now we talk about drink driving. So even the idea that there's any in your system, even at quite a low level, something which couldn't in any meaningful sense change your perception or your reaction times or whatever. But also, because you say, you know, if you're going to go to the pub, why not just not drink? First of all, I suppose in rural communities, that's very difficult, as for all the reasons that you know.
No buses, right? There's probably one taxi in some villages, you know, and you can't just order a taxi whenever you want. There's no Ubers. I mean, down in Sussex, for example, there's literally you can get an Uber in Brighton, but you can't get one anywhere else.
Therefore, it's a particular issue there. But also, when the limits get this low, you could get into a situation where even having a drink or two the night before
Yes.
could potentially lead you to, you know, almost create a false positive on a breathalyzer.
Now, isn't it? Christmas and New Year. I saw quite a few sort of, you know, police stopping people in the morning, which they were clearly then breathalyzing them. Which is a bit. I mean, I know that people shouldn't be doing it, but it's still a bit sneaky, isn't it?
It is, and it's also, I think it's a waste of resources. Like if you're worried about kind of dangerous driving more broadly, and I've seen some of the people even from the organisations that care about this issue say this in recent days, you need to make sure that the police are out and about, that they're clocking dangerous drivers, stopping them, that kind of thing. To just sort of have blanket measures like this, which will almost certainly catch up people who might have had one or two drinks but are basically fine to drive. It's just not the right focus.
People have been quoting the stories this morning are talking about the terrible problems the pub sector's already got, because we found out the other day that Rachel Reeves, Richard III, as we like to call her, is not actually going to help pubs out with their insurance, national insurance rates, or indeed with their business rates. Pub sector, according to the British Beer and Pub Association, continues to face huge challenges. So any additional policy measures that further impact trade will be of real concern to licensees, especially those in rural areas. And Jonathan Neame from Shepherd Neame says, I hope the government sees sense and makes a U-turn. The industry is not going to lie down on this issue. For years, we've been saying that we are overtaxed. And I mean, it's true to say, isn't it? Because I remember the Sun doing a study of this, that the tax on a pint of beer in Britain is something like 54 pence, or maybe even more than that. Whereas in somewhere like Germany, it's like 5.
This is it. When you go abroad, you know, even to other pretty prosperous European countries, just the cost of actually getting a drink in is so much lower. And it's not just about the pub trade and publicans and people who work in hospitality, as important as all those things are. It's also the fact that, you know, the pub is very important to British social and public life. And they've been closing at a rate of knots for decades now. Yeah. The smoking ban was a huge hammer blow to them. Obviously, COVID was an enormous hammer blow to them. The energy price hikes that we saw after the war in Ukraine kick off, all of these things put together, we'll be lucky if we've got any of them left. So without the government to go around and say, also, we're going to jack up your business rates by maybe 75%. It's like they want to close.
It's the same government who only, I think, day before yesterday, someone was saying we're tackling the cost of living. Yeah, you're tackling it and putting everything up.
Yeah,
you know, everything's getting more expensive. I was in Waitrose the other day, and they had a big sign up, I tweeted it out, saying that, you know, because of duty rising on alcohol, prices are going to go up. You know, we're also, they told us that, you know, train fares are frozen, but they've been going up solidly for about the last, you know, 3 or 4 months. And, you know, I was looking at sending my son back to Manchester, and they wanted something like 257 quid for a return ticket. And I mean, yes, you can get around it if you are savvy enough to do so, but that was with the rail card. You know, it really is extraordinary how much money they're asking people to spend. And we got Tom Kerridge. I don't know if we can play Tom Kerridge, the restaurateur who owns a few pubs as well. He was talking to LBC the other day, and he was saying incredibly that the business rates for a pub that he's got are going to go up by over 100%. Have a look at this.
you got that 15%. Mine is around about 115% on I've got 4 spaces, 4 pubs, and all of them are going up at, pretty much over 100%.
Over 100, even
over
with
100%.
Even with the relief that the Treasury says it's providing.
Yeah, so the relief comes in. That works. That's to help you get to the end number.
Correct.
So it's not relief that's taken away. It's actually, we're just softening the blow. It's still killing you off in 2-3 years time. So the packages that are helpful are only helpful for a short period of time. The end result is, for example, my Butcher's Tap and Grill, which is a very small little pub boozer in the middle of Marlow, does burgers, fries, sport on the telly. It's not Michelin star. It's not generating huge revenues. And if we weren't in there, it's the sort of pub that an owner landlord would have, live upstairs, come downstairs, work 70 hours a week, loving that kind of space. The rates at the minute are £50,000 a year. That's gone up to £124,000 a year. So a £74,000 increase in business rates. Now, if you were the owner of that business and you lived upstairs, that's over all of your wages gone. You live upstairs. Your rent is paid by living on premises. So many pubs operate like that, whether they're small little town centre ones or countryside ones. Most operators, most landlords live on site. They operate. They make a little bit of cash, maybe around 40, 50 grand a year. That if they're lucky, the moment the business rates have gone, that's it. What's the point in being open?
Point in being open is what Tom Kerridge says. You see how much it's going to go up by? I mean, it's going to go up by, some ridiculous amount of money to over £120,000 from 54. It's incredible. It's just insane. By the way, it's coming up to 9 minutes past 7. It is Wednesday. I've been told it's Wednesday in Coventry, by the way. I think it's Wednesday everywhere, but it's certainly Wednesday in Coventry, it says here. Where is that one gone? I can't find it. How funny was that Maduro video? Says always interested. We'll do some super chats coming up very shortly. We've already got people saying hello from Jamaica, people saying hello as well from Spain, a couple of people in America saying good morning as well. Absolutely brilliant. Cindy says good morning, good afternoon from the Philippines, says Tony. One here from Koh Samui, from the Ted Wardson. Go get the mic, and good morning, everyone. Watching from Cyprus is Voice. Good morning, Mike. Just waiting for another great show, says Cindy. Good morning, Mike. Another day in our mad, mad world. Looking forward to your take on it all. The best breakfast show by a mile, even with the little issues. Yeah, we are having a few issues, but don't worry. And also, we've got some really good news for you, because we've got a brilliant newsreader, by the way, Tom. You might not know about this. His name is Edward Hughes. And he's got, it's a bit of a play on Hugh Edwards, and he's got a bit of a Welsh lilt, and he was a bit quiet yesterday, but we've got him, I think we've got him augmented today, so Pooch has been working on it to make sure we can hear him better. Back to the pub story. A government source hit back at comparisons with road deaths, basically saying it's absolute nonsense that Scotland has had a lower alcohol limit for more than 10 years and the rural pub is still alive and well. Well, not really. I've lived in Scotland, and one of the things that you really miss about living in Scotland, if you're from England, is the pub scene. Because there is no country pub scene in Scotland, really. You can find occasional pubs, but there's nothing like the English pub scene. You know what I mean?
Maybe when they said that the Scottish rural pub has not closed, he was referring to one singular pub. I don't know. It's one of those things where if you're going to take lessons on how to run a country, I really wouldn't take anything from the devolved Scottish Parliament either, because as well, they are terrible. Any nanny state policy they could possibly crowbar in, they do it. Doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
They've been really over the top on alcohol in recent years, minimum unit pricing.
Yeah. And
yet their alcohol-related deaths, last time I checked, were going up. So it's clear that this stuff doesn't always have the intended effect, but it has a lot of unintended consequences for the pub trade.
And also, you've got to worry, haven't you, about the Starmer government, who are very nanny state-like. Yeah, they really want to try and control so much of what we do. And so, as much as I said earlier that, I understand people who want to say, if you're going to drive, if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drink, don't drive at all. I get that. However, my sense is that this is just another creeping kind of authoritarian maneuver by Starmer and his boot boys to try and just control everything that we do.
They can't help themselves as well. I think anything like this just sounds good to them. It doesn't even have to be. It fits a pattern, even if it's not a plot. It's one of those things where one of the first things this government came out and said was like, "Oh, we want to ban, smoking in pub gardens. We want to do this. We want to do that." You thought the amount of things that this country needs fixing at the moment is fiddling around with the drink driving limit and
speed limits as well.
Speed is
going to bring down, bringing speed limits down to 20 all over the place. And that's what they did in Wales. Complete disaster. There's parts of London now where they're trying to bring in 10 mile an hour, speed limits. And to be honest, sometimes you're lucky when you get up to 10 minutes an hour because it's so congested.
Quite.
But it really is extraordinary. Let's talk a bit about what's also on the front page this morning. Front page of the Times, UK agrees to boots on the ground in Ukraine. I think we've got a little press conference clip from the coalition of the Willies, as I call them, coalition of the willing, who all met up in Paris yesterday. Nobody really knows why they suddenly decided to do it. It's almost as though they haven't got any influence over Donald Trump in Venezuela and America. So it's like they've sort of gone off on their own and gone, oh, let's have a little summit. Let's invite Mr. Carney from Canada, and let's invite all the other sort of beta males who seem to be running some of these countries in Europe, like Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz from Germany. Should we have a look at the Starmer press conference? Wouldn't, as ever.
And you see, I want to be more, but I have somebody watching. I want to be more effusive. I want to really, But she gets it, and drops the thing, walks off the stage crying. Her mother's crying, her father's crying. Guy gets up. He said, "Have you lifted before?" A little bit. And he walks up. Bing. He could have gone ding, 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 ding. I think it was 112 pounds, right? It's crazy.
And that was Donald Trump actually yesterday speaking at what is now the renamed Kennedy Center. It used to be known as the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. It's now known as the Trump Kennedy Center, believe it or not. And there he was talking about weightlifters who might be trans. And he was doing an impersonation of a trans weightlifter, which will no doubt send various people off into an absolute, terrible spin. But can we get maybe the Starmer press conference as well? In a minute, okay. No one's mentioned the improved sound today, says Cliff. Well, the sound has improved. That's good. There have been lots of big ones throughout history, but the Prime Minister is the biggest one on a cactus, says Top Hat. Love the new Home of Common Sense, says Cindy. Johnny and Sue, morning, Mike. The Home of Common Sense, great to see you back. But what about this boots on the ground thing? I mean, one, we haven't really got the right boots for the army anyway. Every time the army has to go anywhere, we always hear from veterans afterwards that they didn't have the right equipment, they didn't have the right boots. When they were in Iraq, they didn't have the right boots, they didn't have enough bullets. We remember the Red Cap deaths where they didn't have enough, ammunition, and they all got killed by an Iraqi sort of, hit squad. I don't know that we are in a position, and certainly looking at the reaction to some of these statements yesterday from British people. British people are saying, well, are they going to send their sons off to fight? Because, why should we?
No, I think that's exactly right. And also there's a big question mark over all of this, which is that what they have agreed to here is still contingent on there being a ceasefire, on there being a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. And Russia have made pretty clear throughout this whole process that one thing they will not tolerate is NATO troops of any flag or persuasion in Ukraine. And that's precisely what the coalition of the willing are pledging, that there will be these military hubs, French run, British run, what have you, to observe the ceasefire if it ever comes, and so on and so forth. So now, of course, one shouldn't take Russia completely at their word, but at the same time, I think it's underlined what has been true throughout this process, which is Keir Starmer or Emmanuel Macron. They will get up and they will say, we stand with Ukraine, we want to support them to the hill, and so on and so forth. But the two things they never say is, first of all, they don't actually necessarily have the military hardware, the personnel to actually do this. I mean, the British armed forces are increasingly about 4 blokes in a packet of quavers. Everyone knows this. You've got military chiefs constantly coming out and saying more needs to be done to make sure that we can, stand still, let alone go forward. And then the other thing is that any presence of the coalition of the willing countries will be reliant on some form of American backstop and support. They claim that they've secured some level of that in relation to intelligence and US presence, but it's still very unclear, and without it, the whole thing will just go up in smoke.
Well, exactly. It just seems to me, watching the press conference, we'll get it to you in a moment. A lot of people saying the sound is a lot better today, by the way, so thank you very much indeed. And many of you saying you're looking forward to hearing from our newsman, of course, Edward Hughes, with the news. He's going to be around about 7:30. It's coming up to 17 minutes past 7 now. Lots of you on the live chat. Absolutely brilliant stuff. People from Michigan are calling into us. As I said, we've had Jamaica, we've had the Philippines, many messages coming in. In Iraq, my son was in the Royal Engineers. He had to wear jungle fatigues in the bloody desert. That's right, and that's from David. Katie says, these European politicians have been on the Young Global Leader program of the World Economic Forum. Well, this is the problem. I mean, they've got sort of this idea that they're going to somehow solve the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the Russian war with Ukraine, but they haven't actually got Russia to agree to anything yet. I mean, according to Sergei Ryabkov, as Russia's deputy foreign minister, he said last month in Moscow, but definitely will not at any moment subscribe to, agree to, or even be content with the presence of NATO troops in Ukraine, even if those troops were part of the security guarantee. And I heard an expert late last night talking about this, and there is no security guarantee because all of this boots on the ground stuff depends upon actually a peace deal being made with Russia, which nobody's making because Russia don't want a peace deal.
That is the big caveat attached to this agreement that they've stitched up between themselves. And it's one of those things where Russia are concerned, one obviously shouldn't take their over-the-top claims 100% seriously. One also should recognise that whilst NATO expansion and NATO presence on its borders was clearly kind of part of the geopolitical mix into what brought about this conflict, it also doesn't excuse it. But I think one thing that has been true throughout this process is that when it comes to security guarantee for Ukraine, I think the primary thing to watch there is the Ukrainian armed forces themselves. Russia, in its demands that it's been making ahead of these negotiations which have been taking place, has been trying to very seriously limit how big Ukraine's armed forces could be, because obviously it doesn't want it to be able to defend itself. But I think that is very much how Ukraine defends itself in the future. It's not through Western allies who have been, frankly, more capable of posting tweets and writing communiques rather than actually backing it up with firepower. It will be in being able to be supported to defend itself. And I think that's probably the way forward in relation to all of this.
Yeah, absolutely right. Simone says, love from Brisbane. Simone, very good morning to you. Got a super chat from GD Warak, who says, carry on making mornings great again. One from Johan, who says, idiots, a lot of them. What troops exactly? The way our veterans are treated and left homeless, while illegal immigrants are living in 4-star hotels. What a bloody joke. Well, this is the thing. And there's no guarantee, is there, that there's a sort of European directive in terms of any kind of military scenario, because at the end of the day, they can't guarantee who's in charge of it, because if it's not NATO, who's actually running it, You don't want the EU in charge of it. I mean, the last time we had Ursula von der Leyen anywhere near a defence force, when she was defence minister of Germany, they didn't have any guns, so she gave them all broom handles to carry around, remember? I mean, it's just hopeless, absolutely hopeless. President Zelensky was there, of course, yesterday as well. He says the deal illustrates the willingness of the coalition and the European countries to work for peace. What does it mean? Does it mean anything? What's he talking about?
And you do feel for Zelensky and the Ukrainians, though, as far as they are stuck between different kinds of imperfect allies. You've obviously got America, which even during the Biden days would talk a big game on Ukraine, but not necessarily back it up. I mean, but just before the invasion, Biden was openly saying he would tolerate a minor incursion into Ukraine, basically almost giving Russia the green light. And
back in 2014, of course, nobody did anything today.
No, exactly. And also, in the run up to the full scale invasion as well, it was always clear that America and NATO in general were very happy to dangle NATO membership, but never really follow through on it. So they kind of helped create a conflict which they had no interest in actually fighting. But then, of course, you've got Trump come in, who, like or loathe his position, clearly speaks to a portion of the American electorate who say this war isn't our problem. And that's completely changed the game. But then Europe will constantly make such a song and dance about their support for Ukraine. And obviously on a rhetorical and moral level, I get it. I share it, but at the same time, they never back it up with anything. Meanwhile, over the course of this conflict, they've given, by some estimates, more money to Russia in terms of purchasing its fossil fuels than they have to Ukraine in terms of arming its defence. So they can huff and puff all they want. They can talk about how keen they are to support Ukraine and therefore European security, but they've let their own militaries wither on the vine. They haven't even backed up Ukraine nearly to the extent that they would like you to think that they have. And it's all coming home to roost now with a negotiation which is all premised on, yes, we'll offer X and Y, maybe, but we still need the Americans standing behind us with a big stick, otherwise we're screwed. It's just, we're replaying the same kind of pantomime with this.
It is bad. Some more coming up to 7:22, some more super chats. One from Ian, who says, great to have you back, improving daily. Don't forget Iran, that is seismic. I mean, there's an awful lot going on in Iran as well, that a lot of the mainstream media doesn't seem to be covering. There's the big clock alert there, by the way, for some of you who don't like too many clocks. We've got more clocks coming. What is happening in Iran, and why are people so reluctant to cover it?
I think that's a really interesting question. I mean, what we're seeing here is the biggest challenge to the regime of the Ayatollahs that we've maybe seen since. I mean, back in 2022, 2023, if memory serves, when you had the kind of women life freedom protests, that really rattled the regime, not least because you saw the demonstration spread from the kind of sections of society you would previously expect it to come from, the kind of middle class, the students or what have you, to people across the country. And I think what we're seeing play out now is something potentially on an even bigger scale. Cities across the country, you've seen it was sparked by the shopkeepers and the people who are working in the bazaar who were responding to the terrible economic conditions for them. And also the morphing of this from a kind of cost of living issue into one that's very political, calling for death to the dictator and so on and so forth. Why are the media not covering it? I think that their excuse is that, it's very difficult to get journalists into Iran, therefore it's impossible to cover. That never stopped them having a very clear line on Gaza, shall we say. But I think it's also because it doesn't quite fit the script. First of all, anything that involves Donald Trump is always going to take more precedence, but also, you have got certain media people who have come to think of Iran, whether or not they want to admit it or not, as sort of, if not, they struggle to compute it, I think, because it's so seismic and also because it kind of grates against some of their other sensibilities.
Yeah.
It is 100% one to watch. This isn't just people getting excited on Twitter about a few people taken to the streets. This is a very serious challenge. Where it goes is very unclear, but you just wish there were more people in the mainstream media willing to give it the prominence that it obviously deserves.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? One from Sophia, who says, "Morning, Mike. Do you think the removal of Maduro's removal was coordinated with the uprising in Iran? It looks like the groundworks were being made for an uprising. It all fits nicely together." I mean, it is kind of perverse, isn't it, that both countries seem to have sort of, had a seismic event happen at the same time.
No, it's interesting that. And I wonder if it's something about this time of year as well. I mean, Donald Trump always seems to take the kind of New Year's period to do something quite
Yeah.
drastic. We saw that with Soleimani back in 2020, 2019.
Right.
When
Maybe
he
he gets
took
a bit
out
bored.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good time to do it for reasons that you or I, as not military experts, wouldn't necessarily recognise. But Iran has been waiting to go off for a very long time. Like I say, you've had protests in recent years. Couple that with the sanctions which have been levelled on them. Couple that with the fact that a lot of people within Iran have been seeing their own quality of life take a complete plunge, not just because of the external economic pressures, but also the internal corruption and mismanagement. Meanwhile, the whole Gaza conflict has reminded them that all the time that they were really struggling, all the time that they were having to put up with these infringements upon their freedoms, particularly women, you had the mullahs and the ayatollahs funneling money towards Hamas, funneling money towards Hezbollah, trying to kind of extend their writ to various parts of the Middle East. Meanwhile, people at home in this nation were not being looked after at all. So I think this was always going to explode. It was just when, essentially. And I think all of these things put together with the strikes that America and Israel landed on Iran not too long ago, it was only a matter of time, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Wilhelmina says the Christmas decoration needs to be removed. And please, can we have a Union Jack? Suggest that one that's possibly in a clock. Well, you could do that. We'll be getting some news coming up later on with Hughes, the news, of course. Here's Edward Hughes. You know him. We've got a dog survey as well on your favourite names for dogs. It's coming up to 26 minutes past 7. We've got to talk about the police this morning as well. There's two massive stories. One on the front page of the Daily Mail. This is beggars belief, right? Bungling police told the parents of a teenager he had died in a car crash days before Christmas when he was actually alive in hospital. It then took officers 3 weeks to realise they had mixed up the identity of survivor Trevor Wynn, 17, with his friend, 18-year-old crash victim, Joshua Johnson. So they told a second family that their son had survived when he'd actually died.
I don't know which one is worse.
I mean, it's awful, isn't it?
There's ineptitude and there's ineptitude. I mean, people have enough problems with the police at the moment, enough lack of faith, let alone the fact that when someone shows up at their door and gives them the worst possible news as a parent you could ever expect to get. I mean, that is the nightmare scenario. It's the police, it's an odd hour, where is he? It's beggars belief that something like this could happen. I mean, surely you would think the officers who were attending to it had maybe been to the hospital, would maybe at the site, with this, with that. I can only really feel for the parents, both families involved, that they were on the receiving end of this.
According to this report, South Yorkshire Police only discovered that they had made the staggering mistake when the badly injured boy woke up in hospital on the Sunday and told nurses, "I'm Trevor." I mean, seriously.
I mean, this isn't.
How can you declare somebody dead if you don't know their identity?
Well, I know, this is the sort of thing that I don't claim to be someone with tons of experience in terms of this particular area. Maybe Peter Blexley or someone like that can help us out on this particular issue. But surely, when it comes to identifying who has been in a crash or who has been in a horrific accident or who has been in some horrific violent incident, that it's a lot more foolproof than what it is that seems to have happened here.
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you? The other big police story, of course, today is the one that's been now going on for several weeks and started well before Christmas. Kemi Badenoch calling for the West Midlands Police Chief Constable to be sacked over the banning of Israeli fans from a Birmingham football match. This happened back in November when Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were basically told, you're not welcome in Birmingham, so we can't guarantee your safety. And also since then, basically he has been before various parliamentary committees and appears to have misled them at the very least and possibly even lied to them.
I mean, the details of this are absolutely staggering. So people will remember that these fans were banned because of the local safety advisory group in Birmingham. And the story that was spun,
The Muslim population, wasn't it?
exactly, because the story that was spun originally was that essentially these Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, they're hooligans, they're a potential threat to the area, and therefore they can't be allowed to come. Very unusual in English football for the entire fan bases to be banned in this fashion. It didn't happen to the fans of Paris Saint-Germain after they celebrated their Champions League win last season to such an extent that 3 people died and a cop ended up in a coma. That didn't lead to them being banned from every football stadium in the land, but this did. And then people started digging, and then they looked into the fact that, okay, one of the reasons that was given was that what happened in Amsterdam when you had this essentially pogrom against the Israeli Jewish supporters of Maccabi Tel Aviv by sections of the local Muslim population, that was used against them. And people thought, okay, I smell a rat here, because the main victims in that violence were the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans themselves. The police said, no, actually, we spoke to the authorities in Amsterdam, and they told us that the Maccabi fans were a threat. The authorities in Amsterdam turned around and said, we never said that. The story unfurls and unfurls and unfurls. And it gets to the point where, as has been laid out in recent days, it's quite clear that they had a meeting saying, essentially, we want to ban this, but we don't have any intelligence in order to do so. Some intelligence was found under quite curious circumstances.
Well, that's
now
from what happened in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
didn't they?
exactly.
But it was actually false.
No,
It was basically put together.
and the people they claim to have spoken to in the Amsterdam police have turned around and say, this is not what we said, if anything, quite the opposite. And what's now transpired is that the warnings that they got before they had any of these meetings to decide whether the fans should be banned, they had it reliably told to them that there were sections of the Muslim population in Birmingham who were willing to arm themselves in order to confront these fans. And that is essentially why this has happened.
Just confront these fans, confront Jewish people.
Yeah, no, quite.
Right, because they were Jewish people who were coming, right? According to Kemi Badenoch last night, she wrote this on X, West Midlands police capitulated to Islamists and then collaborated with them to cover it up. They knew extremists were planning to attack Jews for going to a football match, and their response was to blame and remove Jewish people instead. She says the chief constable's position is untenable. The British police serve the British public, not local sectarian interests. But I've got already messages coming in from people saying that, the West Midlands police have been like this for a long time. Birmingham MPs are Muslim first, then they're community only, and Britain comes in last, or they deny being British, says Michael. And people say, where are we? That basically the West Midlands police have been an utter disgrace. This is from Johan. They have been biased towards Muslim populations in Birmingham forever, especially regarding Jewish Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. Utter garbage reason given. He can't survive, this guy, can he?
No, I would be amazed if he lasts a day. I think there is enough reason now. And even if the government or the local authorities there find it a little bit awkward, this to be caught out essentially misleading not only your higher ups but also the nation. I think that's a point in which no one can cling on to their job.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, Pooch has got not just one dog, he's got 2 dogs, right? There's a study here from the National Dog Survey that says Poppy is the most popular name for female dogs, while Teddy was most sought after for males. What's the name of your 2 dogs, Pooch?
Missy and George.
Missy and George, there you go. Milo ranked 13th in 2011. That's rising up the charts, apparently. It's now 4th place. By 2025, second most popular name for male dogs. Have you got a dog?
I don't have a dog.
You haven't got a dog. You live in London, don't you? It's probably not so easy to have
quite.
one. So female names: Poppy, Luna, Bella, Daisy, Ruby, Rosie, Willow, Molly, Lola, and Mabel. And the male names, favourite male names: Teddy, Milo, Alfie, Buddy, Charlie, Max, Bertie, Barney, Bailey, and Archie. No sign of Ziggy in there, I'm afraid, but you'll be disappointed about that. Couple of other things just to finish up with before we close off and go off to Edward Hughes with the news. This one on the front of the Telegraph: more than 150 teachers have been allowed to keep their gold-plated pensions despite being running this place.
I mean, that's insane. I mean, surely it doesn't take a genius to draw up contracts and agreements in this area where if you're accused of such heinous crimes which completely cut against your entire professional response and moral responsibilities as it relates to children, to make sure they're not in access of that. I mean, but
I mean,
again,
mind you,
nothing past them.
I mean, mind you, Hugh Edwards has still got his gold-plated pension from the BBC, despite actually having a criminal conviction. I mean, you know, so I mean, for God's sake. But this is extraordinary. The Freedom of Information Act inquiry shows that 60 teachers have been banned for sexual misconduct involving a child since 2015, and a further 96 have been barred for possessing indecent images. However, none of them have been stripped of their pension since 2005.
I mean, this is such surely.
It's ridiculous.
Surely you think this is one of those things that's just been ignored for too long, and that the DfE will finally take some action. But how that can be allowed to stand, I've got no idea.
I know, absolutely right. One final one. Meghan Markle apparently has sold 1 million jars of jam, and she's made 26 million quid. I find that extraordinary.
You can't knock the hustle, can you? I mean, there's one thing about Meghan Markle. I do sometimes wonder whether she is actually playing a genius game of 4D chess, because she's so cringe and irritating. People can't help but kind of share it, talk about it, write about it. We'll discuss it, and therefore, if nothing else, it's getting the jam out there, isn't it?
But is she also the poster girl for what we now have as this post-truth society where people just tell a load of lies and nobody actually ever challenges them?
Exactly. There's that. She's made it into an art, and she's made it into what sounds like a very successful jam business. So on this score alone, Meghan, congratulations.
Jam tomorrow is what they'll be telling old Harry, won't they? Tom Slater, thank you very much indeed from Spiked Online. Are you working on anything particularly exciting today or this week?
Oh, always exciting over at Spike Towers, but people should just tune into the podcast this week. On the Spike podcast, we'll be dissecting a lot of what we've been talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely
because
right.
The world, it continues to go mad, doesn't it?
The world does continue to go mad, absolutely right. And we've got loads more for you. We're going to do some super chats coming up. It is coming up to 7:34, so we're running a little bit late. We have to apologise to Edward Hughes with the news, but he's coming up next.
Hello, this is the news with Edward Hughes. Before I get to the news, I would like to say thank you for the kind messages and requests for photos I've received. In your face, BBC. Everyone loves a rear-facing selfie. Give me a pout. In today's news, ongoing severe winter weather dominates with widespread snow and ice disruptions, including over 1,000 school closures across the UK and amber warnings for heavy snow in parts of Scotland. Travel chaos on roads and rails continues alongside health alerts for the cold snap. Parliament resumes with scrutiny of bills like the Diego Garcia military base legislation. Storm Goretti, what a ludicrous name, brings heavy snow and strong winds. Met Office warnings for snow and ice persist across much of the UK, with amber alerts in parts of Scotland and risks of further accumulations. I bet the Met Office forecasters are working from home. The government demands action on Grok AI deepfakes. Ministers call Elon Musk's X platform appalling for sexualized deepfake content, urging urgent measures to address the issue. An AI character, imagine that. I'll drink to that. Bottoms up. Retail boosts. Next raises profit forecast after strong Christmas sales, topping expectations amid bumper festive trading. Scotland's Justice Secretary cleared. Investigation finds Angela Constance unintentionally breached ministerial code. Unintentionally, right? A Hero Posthumous Award has been considered. Man who died attempting sea rescue in Withern Sea could receive recognition. In today's sports news, Premier League action resumes post-winter break with key matches amid transfer window speculation. Build-up to the Six Nations rugby intensifies, with major events like the Australian Open tennis starting soon. Chelsea's new head coach Liam Rosenior prepares for upcoming fixtures. And now to the weather. It's cold, I can tell you. Shrinkage temperatures. Persistent cold spell with yellow and amber warnings for snow, ice and potential further accumulations up to 15 centimetres. In northern Scotland, freezing temperatures nationwide, icy conditions overnight into morning, and wintry showers spreading south. Disruptions likely with risk of power cuts in affected areas. And finally, the poll for the name of the Mike Graham Show continues. The contenders include 1. Heron Mirren, 2. Heron of Troy 3, Eva Heron 4, Richard the Bird, and 5, my suggestion, Hugh the Heron. Please go to the Mike Graham Show on YouTube and check out the poll. And remember to like and subscribe. More news later if I can be bothered.
The news with Edward Hughes. I mean, who can say? He could be the best news reader that's ever been. I mean, what I was really encouraged by actually last night when I was looking on Facebook, where many of you post. Thank you very much indeed. There's a group called the Mike Graham Show there, but you can also post on my own page. It turns out that there's quite a debate going on about Edward Hughes because some people think he's brilliant. Some people think he's really annoying. Some people think he doesn't talk loudly enough, but we've got that fixed, I think, today. So we should be able to go with that. We will bring you more and more on Edward Hughes, the news, because people are really fascinated by where he comes from, what he does in his spare time, what he does while he's reading the news even as well. So we'll come back to that in a little while. We'll also do some messages. We'll keep putting them up there. So do keep sending them in, because the place to put those at the moment is, of course, the wonderful YouTube chat room. Is Edward Hughes real? He sounds like AI, says Mrs. A. Well, Hughes has got attitude, says the open eye. We can't tell you whether he's real or he is AI because, of course, you know, he likes to keep himself to himself, and he's asked us not to give away too much information about him. Is there a reason to ridicule Edward Hughes? Not a good look, Mike. What's wrong with it ridiculing Edward Hughes? You know, I'm not ridiculing him. It's just some other people are. Thank Edward Hughes with the news. I enjoyed that, says GMN. There's lots and lots of people having good conversations on Facebook about how they love Edward Hughes. Other people saying they don't. But please keep Edward, says Mary Fuller. Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, you can send us messages on Super Chats as well, and that'll bump you straight up. He does sound more Welsh, one just came in there to say. Also, before we speak to Sunil Sharma, who's our next guest, who's coming up very shortly, and by the way, we're also going to be talking later on to Jasmine Birtles, who's going to have some financial advice for you. Also, Orla Minahain is going to talk to us from Epping. You know, she's one of the pink ladies who's been doing so well to raise the issues that so many people need. And there's a big clock coming in there, 7:39. Goodness me, 7:40 almost. Attack of the clocks. What can you say? But let's have a little clip about some of the stuff that was going on yesterday. Wes Streeting was doing the rounds, attempting to try and explain what Keir Starmer is all about on the international stage. Check this out.
The Minister has unique leverage and influence, and he sought to bring that to bear consistently, and I would argue effectively, to pursue our interests.
In what sort of way? Because he hasn't done what we wanted on Ukraine. He's gone into Venezuela. He's threatened Greenland. Where is this unique leverage?
Well, hang on a second. Firstly, when it comes to trade and the UK's economic interests, we secured trading terms with the United States
that are worse than where they were before Brexit.
Sure, I don't dispute that.
They're worse trading arrangements than they were before Brexit. Is that what she said? So exactly why is Keir Starmer so brilliant at trade negotiations if the trade negotiations that he's doing are actually making trade worse between the United States and Britain? And of course, what we know about Keir Starmer is that all he ever goes on about is how we've got 3 trade deals, one with the EU, one with India, and one with the United States of America, all of which were done early part of last year. So where are all the other trade deals that he's supposed to be doing? And how is he so some kind of, behemoth on the international stage? I just don't think he is. Absolutely ridiculous. Coming up, we're going to be talking about a couple of other stories as well that we haven't mentioned yet. The CPS apparently are so woke that they've actually been caught out by Guido Fawkes. And this is a really interesting one because I spotted this last night. And basically, they've been sort of making sure that diversity is their strength, which seems extraordinary, doesn't it? Because these are the people who are supposed to be running the prosecution service in this country, right? And the CPS basically apparently doesn't seem to know which end is up. Because what they ought to be doing is concentrating literally on prosecuting the bad guys and locking people up and making sure that they take people into a courtroom and find out what they've done. And if they're guilty, then they completely and utterly do them for what they've been found guilty of. But instead, there's been a memo that's been discovered from inside of the CPS in which they talk about how people might be getting worried and might be feeling as if they might be in danger because of all these far-right people running around with flags. It really is an extraordinary state of affairs, absolutely and utterly ridiculous. So they've sent memos to various members of various teams inside the CPS saying, if you are feeling vulnerable and if you are feeling in danger, then by all means come and talk to somebody. If you see a British flag that makes you feel upset, that's not good. And what is going on inside of the kind of the world of the civil service? It really does seem extraordinary to me that there's nobody running it properly. Doesn't it seem weird to you? We're also going to be catching up with more of the news on the front pages this morning. Britain to be hit by a major snowstorm. Storm Goretti is what it's called. I don't know where they're getting these names from. Storm Goretti. We'll bring you more as well on the state of play down at Heathrow Airport, because apparently the Paddington train services are all knocked out because the overhead wires have been damaged by the cold and they're having engineering works overrunning. So basically what they're going to be doing is running no Heathrow Express trains. They're running no Elizabeth Line trains either, and you're not going to be very lucky trying to get a South West train anywhere either. It really is quite an extraordinary state of affairs. Let's have a look at Susan Hall before we go on to talk to our next guest, Sunil Sharma. Susan Hall, of course, was the leader of the Conservatives in City Hall here in London. Here she is having a go at Sadiq Khan about homelessness.
You ask about how we measure success. I think that's success.
Deputy Mayor, you've got a very, very bad memory. I was actually pointing out that as rough sleeping had gone up so drastically, along with the amount of money, I mean, City Hall's rough sleeping budget has gone up from 8.45 million in 2016 to 44.8 million. And even from last year...
and we're very, very proud of that.
Even from last year, it's gone up 10%. People on the streets have gone up by 10%. My questioning to you before was how come the amount of money available to you has gone up so drastically, but so have the amount of people on the streets. Why are you not getting it right?
Because the need, Assembly Member Hall, down in no small part to the choices that your party made when they were in government. I mean, to listen to you sometimes, you think that the Conservative Party hadn't been in power for 14 years.
Well, it's gone up 10% since last year.
Sorry?
It's gone up 10% since last year. How long are you going to be blaming
because we are
somebody
still dealing with the effects of this, and the facts are the factors that are driving people onto the streets are outside of the mayor's control.
Then why did he put in his manifesto then that he guaranteed there wouldn't be anybody sleeping rough by 2030? If it's out of his control,
the manifesto commitment is to
once again, Sadiq Khan fail. He makes promises that he can't keep. He says things are going to happen that don't happen. He's going to eradicate homelessness by 2030. He claims that the air is cleaner in London because of all of his measures against people that drive cars, introducing cycle lanes, making electric buses go emissions free. The problem is that London is as dangerous as it's ever been. It's as filthy as it's ever been. It's as overcrowded as it's ever been. He's also talking, I'm told, about doing away with, cheap and in some cases free travel for pensioners, many of whom haven't got the money to pay extortionate fees to get on the underground, and they need to get around in some way other than getting a taxi because they can't afford that either. I mean, this man really is a disgrace, and I don't understand why he's still sitting there in City Hall without seemingly giving a care to anybody who criticises him. He doesn't pick up the phone. He doesn't talk to anybody he doesn't like. I mean, I've asked him for interviews for about 4 or 5 years now, and he's never, ever come across, and he's never ever wanted to do it. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Sunil Sharma. We'll do some super chats as well. This is the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to 7:46. Let's say a very good morning to Sunil Sharma, a man that we talk to an awful lot in the world of common sense. And this is, of course, the real home of common sense. Sunil, welcome to the new Mike Graham Show. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on. Your show's been awesome so far. It's been
it's brilliant. We're really loving it, and we're really enjoying it, and the people are loving it as well. We've got 9.4 thousand people watching it live, which is a massive number. So we're very happy about that. We've been having about 10 or 11,000 pretty much all week so far. So it's really terrific. I've got to start off by asking you about the state of play with this bleeding useless Prime Minister that we've still got. Yesterday, he held his first cabinet meeting of the new year. Let's have a look and see if we can see what he was saying.
Welcome to the first cabinet meeting of the year. And I just want to say a few words because in 2026, thanks to the choices that we have already made, more people will begin to feel the change that we promised in their bills, in their communities, and in their health service. So despite the chaos that we inherited, you can already start to see the difference that a Labour government makes. By restoring economic stability, interest rates have fallen 6 times, helping homeowners with their mortgages. By investing in our NHS, with 5 million extra appointments, hospital waiting lists have fallen, meaning that patients are able to get on with their lives instead of waiting in agony for treatment. By getting more police patrolling our streets, violent crime has fallen, which means families can feel safer when they're out and about. Our challenge for this year is to prove that politics can deliver. And nowhere is this more important than when it comes to putting more money in people's pockets. And I know that so many families across the country are still worried about the cost of living. For most people, it's the single most important and the biggest issue that they are facing. And we are on their side. And yes, there's a world of uncertainty and upheaval, but tackling the cost of living remains and must remain our focus. We're helping families by taking £150 off average energy bills in April of this year. We're helping travellers by freezing rail fares for the first time in 30 years. We're helping parents by opening free breakfast clubs in 500 more schools in April, saving them £450 a year. We're helping workers by increasing the national living wage, worth £900 a year for millions of the lowest paid. So this will be an important year as we show that renewal is becoming reality and that Britain is turning the corner. Getting our country back on track is hard, difficult work, and we will reject the politics of easy answers and gimmicks that frankly got us here in the first place. At the next general election, we will be judged on whether we've delivered on the things that really matter. Do people feel better off? Are public services improving, for which they will look to the NHS? And do people feel more safe and secure in their own community? They are the issues we'll be judged on at the next general election, and that is our focus. That will require hard work, focus and determination from all of us. And together as a team, we'll rise to that challenge and deliver for the whole country.
I mean, it's hard to believe that this man has ever made it to the leader of the Labour Party, never mind actual Prime Minister, Sunil. I mean, we've got people saying that High Tech says this to me on the YouTube chat. I can feel the difference that Labour have made. I've never felt so poor. My wife cannot get a date for a very important hospital appointment alone, get the appointment at all. I despise this moron, says KB. Starling Starmer out now. It's absolutely incredible just how deluded he seems to be. I mean, all of those things he said about renewal, about, putting money into people's pockets, about breakfast clubs. It's the same sort of rubbish that he comes out with every time he opens his mouth, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think you look at him, and for him to speak like that, he's clearly reading off a script. I'm not sure if he believes it himself what he's saying. There is no way anyone, him in the cabinet in the UK, can honestly say their lives have got better since he's become Prime Minister. And, I think a lot of people would have more respect for him if he started his cabinet meeting saying 2025 did not go to plan. It was a shocking year. We really struggled. We need help. We need support. I think that'd be a much stronger way to get a lot more respect, instead to sit there and then talk about all these amazing accomplishments that he's apparently achieved when, it's evident that that's not the case. I don't know anyone that would agree with any of half the stuff he said there, or any of it, to be honest. And so I think it's quite pathetic to see him talk like this. And it's sad that this is a man who, I don't know, like, I'm almost coming to the conclusion that he almost deliberately wants to destroy the UK, because I can't believe somebody can be this grossly incompetent. And I've started to think that I think with him destroying the UK the way he's doing it, maybe this will be one of the reasons for him to push the digital ID, for him to say, look, we need it more than ever. Crime's going up. I can't, and I keep trying to think to myself, what is the rationale behind his decisions? And I'm really, really struggling to find any purpose other than total destruction of the UK, and in some way that will benefit him by being able to introduce this even more of a authoritarian state that he's already done. So it's really depressing.
It really is, because I mean, we saw him at the weekend giving his big interviews, with first up to Laura Kuenssberg, and then to various other outlets as well. And he appears to kind of not either realise what the reality of Britain in 2025, 26 is actually for people. Nobody's better off. I don't talk to anyone who thinks that Labour is doing a good job. The only people that ever say that they are Labour themselves. And, you know, people like Wes Streeting, who comes out and says, you know, we've got a great big role to play on the international stage. I mean, we saw him all week being embarrassed because he couldn't even decide whether the invasion of Venezuela by special forces from Delta Force in the USA was a breach of international law, which is meant to be his specialist subject.
The idea that this Labour government, Keir Starmer, are taken seriously internationally is a joke. I don't think anyone sits there and thinks, whether you're Donald Trump, whether you're in the EU, whether you're in Africa, Asia, wherever, I don't think anyone looks at Keir Starmer as somebody that they respect, somebody that they have any admiration for. It's evident. You can see what he's done with some of the deals in giving away British sovereign states, and it's embarrassing to see this is the person leading the United Kingdom who has zero strength. You know, you can say what you want about Trump and other people like that. They at least display strength. And I think as a country, when you have a leader who is not strong and he doesn't command any respect, and I think it's a serious problem for the UK on the international stage. I mean, he talked a bit about trade deals and some of the stuff that they're trying to do, but then he also talks about going back to the EU single market, which would destroy all these trade deals. There's nothing that makes sense when he speaks right now. And I think it's clear he needs help. And I think a lot of people respect him if he came out and said, I do actually need help, surrounds himself with some serious business people who have run businesses, people who have been part of big economies. And I think you'd get a lot more. Instead, we're just seeing somebody who is just grossly incompetent to the point now where it feels destructive to the UK. And I think it's a real concern. And it's just how much damage will this man do to the country, which is the big fear.
And how much damage will he do, which is irreparable and which we cannot ever kind of get the country back from? Because this morning on some of the front pages, two stories, I think, Sunil, I'd like your opinion on. One, it might seem a small thing, but this attack on country pubs in particular, saying that they want to reduce the amount of alcohol that people can drink before they get in a car. You know, Nigel Farage has said everybody knows that in rural pub life, people drive to the pub because they have to. Nobody's going to encourage people to be drunk drivers. But the pub businesses are saying, look, we're already suffering. We're already having to make margins even smaller than they were. Tom Kerridge was on talking to LBC about how his business rates are going to go from something like 54,000 to 124,000 for one pub alone. They're just killing the business. And you wonder whether it's because they don't want people drinking.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the UK is one of the great things of the UK is pub culture. I've talked about this quite a bit in the past. I think, you know, people talk about diversity, all this sort of stuff. I think the pub is one of the best things of this culture, where you speak to so many different profiles of people, different opinions, and all this sort of stuff. And I think that the problem is with Keir Starmer and his cabinet, I don't think they will have probably ever gone to a serious pub or a proper pub. They would have gone to these gastropubs in central London, Westminster, or gone down in House of Parliament. I don't think they actually understand the value of a pub. I don't think they understand how important it is to a local community, how important it is in rural areas, and just across the whole of England, outside of London. You know, pub culture is so important, part of it is part of British culture and British values. And I think he just doesn't quite understand that. And I don't think his cabinet do, and I don't think they necessarily care. I don't think he sits there and thinks, the fact that the pubs are in decline, the fact that more and more having to, they've had such a terrible time over COVID. You look what happened during COVID, the amount of pubs that were destroyed because of hospitality and because of what was going on with the virus. And now, just to give another kick in the teeth, he wants to do what he's doing with the business rates. But I think it's a lack of understanding again of what British people are about, what British people want.
Yeah.
It's what he's doing is going to have such a minuscule effect on the economy. But the flip side to it is going to have such a negative impact on people's lives. This isn't something that's going to help UK as a country in terms of their economic state improve or anything. So I just think it's another sign of how out of touch he is.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, only a few days ago, the government was moaning about how not enough people are getting Saturday jobs when they're sort of 16 or 15, and one of the reasons why is because there aren't any, because the pubs who would sometimes hire people under the age of 18 to do clearing up tables or doing washing dishes or helping in the kitchen, without actually having to handle the alcohol, all the sorts of things that happened when I was growing up, jobs that you could do, you can't do now. And then they wonder why people aren't going into these jobs when they're kids, and that's one problem. Then the second one that people are very worked up about this morning is the front page of the Times today, where apparently yesterday Keir Starmer decided to commit British troops on the ground in Ukraine after a ceasefire, after a peace deal is made. A headline says UK agrees to boots on the ground in Ukraine. And a lot of my viewers and listeners are saying to me this morning, well, is he going to send his kids? Is he going to send his son into a war zone to declare some kind of security mantra? I mean, what's he talking about?
I think he cares more about other countries in the UK. I mean, the fact that we're still involved and we're so heavily talking about Ukraine still when we have so many problems at home, I think sums up where his priorities lie. His priorities don't lie with Britain. They lie with the globalists. They lie with the EU. They lie with these bureaucrats. That's who makes the decisions for him. It's not ordinary it's not in the interest of ordinary Brits or even just Britain in general as a country. His values lie and his priorities lie with pleasing his masters of the European Union. And I think you look at what the Ukraine's another fantastic example of him just being so overly aggressive. You look at the amount of funding we've given, the billions of pounds we've spent, and you look at the state of the UK. It's terrifying in terms of what he is proposing, what he's doing. He's not going to send, like you say, his own children, or I don't think anyone from the Labour cabinet's children would be going. It's going to be looking at ordinary British working class people, the same people he almost demonizes every time he speaks about these people, the same people he labels far right. They'll be the people that'll be protecting the UK, and they're the people he'll be trying to send to Ukraine, which is another terrible policy. But again, rather than fixing the problems at home, I think it's a lot easier for him to surround himself with these EU bureaucrats, these international profile of people where
they're all these kind of beta males wandering around congratulating each other and spending a bit too much time hugging each other as well. And the hugs last a little bit too long for my taste. Davo says this: asylum seekers should be trained in the army and serve in these hubs in Ukraine. In turn for their service, they could be granted UK citizenship. How about that for an idea?
Well, it's better than what they're doing right now, right? In terms of taking up resources and filling up hotels. I mean, like you look at the migrant crisis, you look at the illegal immigration or just normal immigration. This is something that they still don't understand in terms of the numbers and what it's doing to the demographic of this country. And he just isn't interested, it seems, in terms of making those adjustments and changes. You don't have to be right-wing or left-wing to understand that the population right now is changing drastically and it has no signs of slowing down. You look at net migration in 60s, 70s, when it was around 10, 20,000. You now look at now in the millions. The demographic of the UK is changing. It's not a racist thing to say. We should be concerned about it. It should be a predominantly white British country. You go to China, and the idea that the Chinese native people aren't dominating that country is absurd. You go to China to be around Chinese people and adapt to their culture and their values. It's the same in India. It's the same in Africa. But it seems like the West, in particular now the UK, just doesn't understand this. And instead, anyone that talks about this is labeled as far right and racist. And instead, he'd rather talk about, again, Ukraine and all these other problems, instead looking at home, where we have, there's so many problems right now in the UK. And in that what you showed earlier in terms of his first speech at the cabinet meeting, how amazing it would have been for him to say, look, we've got some serious problems at home. Let's just talk about one topic, whether it's migration, and I'm going to try and do this. Instead, it's just nonsense, and it's stuff that we all know are lies and stuff that he's not going to change or make any difference on. But it's worrying. I think you look at all the people and the profile people you mentioned today, pubs. You can look at farms. You can look at the people who will end up sending to Ukraine. Who are they going to be? They're going to be white British working class people, and they're the people let's be frank about, he couldn't care less about. And instead, for him, the most important thing is the EU, making sure that he doesn't seem racist and making sure his party doesn't seem racist, rather than just thinking, I need to care for the majority of this country and doing what's best for them, which I don't think he cares about.
Well, he'll have an opportunity, won't he, if there's a decision to be made? Because just one final question for you, Sunil. The situation with the West Midlands Police Chief Constable, Craig Guilford, whose position is now being described as untenable by Kemi Badenoch and many other MPs and activists, basically. Documents published yesterday revealed the West Midlands Police was warned beforehand that locals in the predominantly Muslim community in Birmingham were planning to arm themselves if Israeli fans came to the game. So they decided to ban the Israeli fans from coming. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, crazy. I mean, this is the state. I don't think, when I saw this, I wasn't that surprised. I mean, the fact that they banned a set of fans and predominantly Jewish fans. I mean, that is for that to happen in 2025 last year is absolutely crazy. You would never see that happen to other races or other religions, but the fact that they target, make it so simple like that, and the fact that the Labour were happy to comply with this and almost encourage this is disgraceful, and it should be. It's a massive stain on Britain in general. When people look at the fact that our police, our institutions made an environment so inhospitable for a culture of people. For the Jewish community, we should be embarrassed and ashamed. And I think his position is untenable. And I think it's not just him. I think they should look deeper in terms of those people who didn't speak out against this. The fact that he talks so much about diversity and inclusion and all this other nonsense. But then there's a group of people that didn't allow a race, a religious group of people to come to this country to watch a football game. I mean, that's something like you would have seen, in the 1930s, 40s Germany. This isn't like this. We should be really. When this happened, when it was happening live, I'm a massive football fan, and I just remember thinking, this is embarrassing. Like, this is, we talk so much about racism. There's stand up to racism campaigns in football. You look at the people, the Hope Not Hate people who love to talk about this sort of stuff, but no one had the courage to speak about this.
No. And this happened on November the 6th, and the guy's still there. Lies have been told to Parliament. It seems absolutely extraordinary. We'll watch that one with a lot of interest today, because some people think he's going to have to go. But Sunil, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for spending some time with us. Sunil Sharma, host of Rational Voices with Sunil. Very sensible man. Welcome to the home of common sense, the real home of common sense, which is, of course, right here on the Mike Graham Show. It's 5 minutes past 8. We're a little bit late for Edward Hughes, the man with the news, but he's going to be coming next.
Hello, this is the news with Edward Hughes. Before I get to the news, I would like to say thank you for the kind messages and requests for photos I've received. In your face, BBC. Everyone loves a rear-facing selfie. Give me a pout. In today's news, ongoing severe winter weather dominates with widespread snow and ice disruptions, including over 1,000 school closures across the UK and amber warnings for heavy snow in parts of Scotland. Travel chaos on roads and rails continues alongside health alerts for the cold snap. Parliament resumes with scrutiny of bills like the Diego Garcia military base legislation. Storm Goretti, what a ludicrous name, brings heavy snow and strong winds. Met Office warnings for snow and ice persist across much of the UK, with amber alerts in parts of Scotland and risks of further accumulations. I bet the Met Office forecasters are working from home. The government demands action on Grok AI deepfakes. Ministers call Elon Musk's X platform appalling for sexualized deepfake content, urging urgent measures to address the issue. An AI character, imagine that. I'll drink to that. Bottoms up. Retail boosts. Next raises profit forecast after strong Christmas sales, topping expectations amid bumper festive trading. Scotland's Justice Secretary cleared. Investigation finds Angela Constance unintentionally breached ministerial code. Unintentionally, right? A Hero Posthumous Award has been considered. Man who died attempting sea rescue in Withern Sea could receive recognition. In today's sports news, Premier League action resumes post-winter break with key matches amid transfer window speculation. Build up to the Six Nations rugby intensifies, with major events like the Australian Open tennis starting soon. Chelsea's new head coach Liam Rosenior prepares for upcoming fixtures. And now to the weather. It's cold, I can tell you. Shrinkage temperatures. Persistent cold spell with yellow and amber warnings for snow, ice and potential further accumulations up to 15 centimetres. In northern Scotland, freezing temperatures nationwide, icy conditions overnight into morning, and wintry showers spreading south. Disruptions likely with risk of power cuts in affected areas. And finally, the poll for the name of the Mike Graham Show continues. The contenders include 1. Heron Mirren, 2. Heron of Troy 3, Eva Heron 4, Richard the Bird, and 5, my suggestion, Hugh the Heron. Please go to the Mike Graham Show on YouTube and check out the poll. And remember to like and subscribe. More news later if I can be bothered.
If I could be bothered, he's getting a bit uppity, isn't he, old Edward Hughes? This from Catherine, who says, great to have you back in the morning, Mike. Please can you ask Edward Hughes to pay attention to punctuation? I've just lost that one. Trouble is, with some of the ways that we do things here, we're having to sort of struggle to figure out exactly how it's all happening. People have been saying, why don't you caption the guests? And we just had Sunil Sharma on, and we are going to caption the guests, but Pooch is going to bring an octopus in tomorrow. We might get Paul the octopus, the one that used to predict all the football matches during the World Cup. I think he was in Germany, but we're going to try and do it. We've obviously got plenty going on. There's no shortage of guests coming up. We're going to speak to Jasmine Birtles. We're going to talk to Orla Minahane as well coming up about the latest from Epping and the Bell Hotel and all of that. So many of you have got great questions coming in. I just wanted to reiterate that story that I mentioned in the last hour as well, even though it's now 9 minutes past 8. The Crown Prosecution Service, right, sent this round to civil servants, decided to remind their junior staff that they're all, in their words, welcome, important and valued, as scary flags and far-right protests apparently made it more difficult for them to focus on their work last year. This is what the actual email that went out says. Hello, team. I just wanted to take a sec to recognise that with all the flags and far-right protests at the moment, that this could be impacting you and making it hard to focus on things or feel safe. It should go without saying that in this team, you're all welcome, important and valued. If there is anything I can do to support any of you, please let me know. I just didn't want to ignore the context we are all currently working in and that it feels a bit scary. All right. Now, these are the people who are supposed to be locking up the bad guys. These are the people who are supposed to be prosecuting sex offenders, prosecuting murderers, prosecuting fraudsters, prosecuting rapists, prosecuting people who have committed assault on other members of the public. And instead, they're worried about whether they're all feeling a bit unsafe. I mean, it's unbelievable. Apparently, some people were shocked, not just by the fact that it seems to contravene the Civil Service Impartiality Code, but the suggestion of wrongdoing for flag campaigns was shared in a channel for people who work very closely with CPS lawyers and senior prosecutors. CPS had previously suggested that trans staff may find it safer to work from home. I mean, one of the things that astonished me yesterday, because, I have to spend my day more or less listening and watching other stories and news that's coming in from all over the place. Do you remember a few weeks back in Tunbridge Wells, they had a water problem? Basically, Southern Water, one of the world's most useless water companies, who, by the way, have put their prices up by about 25%. And I'm not talking just about Southern Water, there's most water companies now. So for tackling the cost of living, well done again, Sir Keir Starlin, because people are paying more for their water than they've ever paid, right? But Southern Water basically ran out of water. And then when they fixed the water problem, it turned out the water had actually got E. coli in it, so nobody could drink it. So the water went off supposedly for a couple of days. It ended up being off for more than a week, and people were having to go down and pick up bottled water. They couldn't have showers, they couldn't have baths. Absolutely unbelievable, right? The head boss of Southern Water came out yesterday and basically said that the reason why the water company was under so much pressure was because of COVID, because apparently so many people decided in Tunbridge Wells during COVID to work from home that it put more of a strain on the water business. And that's genuinely what he said. I find it extraordinary, absolutely, utterly extraordinary. This is the Mike Graham Show. It is 12 minutes past 8. We have just heard Edward Hughes with the news, and we're going to be hearing more from him around about 8:30. He'll be updating the news with you, of course. And we'll be talking to Jasmine Birtles, and we'll be talking to Orla Minahane as well. But coming up next, we're going to do some super chats. Some great messages coming in, by the way. This from Cornelius. The problem is the UK doesn't produce much things that the world needs. Well, all we produce, it seems to me, is a load of wokery. Here's one from John, 195, a super chat. Why would Vladimir Putin agree to a ceasefire if it leads to NATO expansion? This will prolong the war. Brilliant. Well, that's the sort of genius idea that Starmer would come up with, isn't it? How about this one from Lammy? Hope he's not David Lammy. British pubs, the soul of England. Labour wants to erase what makes us English. What's next Sunday's lunch tax and a ban on afternoon tea with scones? Well, it does feel a bit like that sometimes, doesn't it? Steph says, please have your guests on your left. Love, Steph. Well, if they're on my left, then you won't be able to see them because there's not a chair there. So that's why they're on my right, which is over there. But if, as you can see, because of the magic of the camera, I'm going right, but I'm actually looking left. Isn't that weird? So it's a kind of optical illusion, is all I can say. Anyway, morning, Mike. Great show. Watching from Greece, says Jane. Loving the new show. Only one issue. When adverts pop up, you lose the current conversation. Otherwise, keep up the good work and a great guest as well. One from Ian who says, great to have you back. Oh, it's just disappeared. Great to have you back. Improving daily. Don't forget Iran. That is seismic. Yeah, we talked a little bit about Iran in the last hour with Tom Slater. One of the things as well, because we are trying to improve the show every single day that we do it, we're trying to bring more clocks in for you. We're going to try and get Edward Hughes with the news a little bit better to make sure that he's not sending any dodgy pictures to anybody while he's in the middle of doing the news. The heron, of course, we're going to name. Also, people have said, please caption the guest. We're going to start doing that. I don't know if we can do it today. And there's lots of other things that we're trying to improve as we go. But as you can see, it's me and Pooch basically here in the studio. Lovely Charlotte is booking guests and making sure that all of the graphics are working very well. And so you will see improvements coming on a daily basis. And I'm going to say to you that I'm very thankful for all of you who are watching, because we're up to 10,000 again on the live stream. So that's fantastic. We had 100,000 plus on Monday, about 90,000 yesterday. I'm hoping we'll have the same today. Don't forget Plank of the Week coming out on Friday as well. That's going to be filmed in the next couple of days. That'll go out at 7 p.m. In the evening. We've also got a Substack operation going on where we've got an after show. And the after show today is with Andrew Montford. We're going to be talking about Net Stupid Zero, as it's called, because Ed Miliband was in Parliament yesterday trying to make out that he's making all of our lives easier and he's going to make it all cheaper, when we absolutely know that that is clearly not the case. The front pages of the papers, of course, we were doing earlier. Daily Telegraph goes with drink drive changes to kill off rural pubs. That story about the West Midlands Police Chief Constable, whose name is Craig Guilford, calls for him to resign, not just from Kemi Bailey, not the leader of the opposition, but also the Board of Deputies of British Jews and the Jewish Leadership Council, because quite frankly, he's a disgrace. He deliberately lied about stuff that went on back in November when Israeli fans, Jewish fans, were banned from going to Birmingham because they couldn't guarantee their safety. Another story which really wound me up today: sex abuse teachers getting gold-plated pensions. More than 150 teachers have been allowed to keep their gold-plated pensions despite being banned for child sexual abuse. Absolutely extraordinary. Also, we're right in the middle of Storm Goretti, which sounds like some kind of ridiculous mafia name, doesn't it? Where do they get these names from? Storm Goretti. We'll be talking more about that. But let's go to our next guest now, though. Orla Minahane is here. She's one of the pink ladies, one of the people who have been bravely standing up to the people who are against freedom, people who are against the sort of the corralling of asylum seekers in hotels up and down the country, particularly in Essex, where Orla lives. Orla, very good morning to you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm
Happy
very
New
well
Year,
indeed.
Mike. Lovely to see you.
So pleased to see you. Yeah, I mean, so much to talk about. I haven't really seen you since the back end of last year. What's the situation right now with the Bell Hotel?
So the Bell is as it was. It's they've still got 138 men. They've barricaded the front of the hotel and they've put fencing everywhere. So now it just looks like an eyesore. So when Epping's a really beautiful town just on the outskirts of East London in Essex, and when you used to come in, it's all forest and really beautiful and elegant, and now you've just got this hotel which is really in a bit of a bad state, to be fair. Broken windows, just in a state of disrepair, and then it's all been barricaded in. Heaven forbid people would try and break into the hotel, all those far right thugs in Epping. It's ridiculous. So it just looks horrible now as well. But there is there was a court case where the council lost against the High Court. They have now gone again back to the High Court to say that they want another hearing. I don't know the technical ins and outs because obviously I'm not in the council, but I know that we are waiting for a new court date to go back to see whether or not they can get the Bell closed down. But again, it's the same scenario up and down the country. If the Bell is closed down and they do win, where do those men go?
Yeah.
So there is no plan, and as we saw last week, there was many articles saying, we're going to look at council houses. We're going to look at the new council built houses and flats that have been built, and we're going to put the men in there. Absolutely outrageous. That cannot happen. And then yesterday, Keir Starmer was on the news saying, I commit to closing down these hotels. We will do it before the next election, etc., etc. But we don't want the hotels closed down and the men put somewhere else. We want the hotels closed down and the men deported.
Yes.
Or at least their asylum, the claims worked through and then a decision made, not just sitting in these hotels for months and months and years on end. It's crazy.
It is crazy, but this is the other problem, isn't it? Because the sort of the Starmer line and the Labour Party government line seems to be the reason we've got so many people in hotels is because the last government didn't process their asylum claims. But, so what they're not saying is we're going to kick them all out. What they are saying is we're going to process their asylum claims quicker and then they can stay here. That seems to be what they want to do. And as you say, we haven't got the housing.
We haven't got the housing. And the thing is, they blame that. So obviously Labour blame Tory. Tory are obviously not exempt from this disaster. Of course they're not. But ultimately, they blame it and say, they let them all in. But you're still letting them in. They're still coming in their thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
So again, you can't solve a flood in a house and stop a flood if you've still got the tap on. And essentially that's what's happening. The numbers are going up. And as Rupert Lowe stated a few weeks ago when he was doing some work with Restore Britain, there are about 53,000 men who have absconded, who knows where they are. They're not in hotels, but
Right.
they're, no one knows where they are. So they've literally just disappeared off the face of the earth, and they are living and working and doing God knows what else in the UK currently. And we don't know who they are or where they are, which is terrifying.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I was saying this last year, back end of last year, that supposedly, according to figures going up to say something like October of last year, 170,000 illegal migrants have come to Britain in the last several years, right, by small boats or whatever. And that's a number that could be larger or could be, you know, even twice as much because of the people that we don't stop or we don't know about. But let's call it 170,000. There's currently 30,000 of those people in hotels. So that means there's at least 140, maybe 150,000 more who are being housed in houses of multiple occupancy or in council houses or are being given free accommodation.
Yeah, and that's not including the ones that are in the Crowboroughs and the you know, the Wethersfield and places, and those the camps. There's also a camp that's been opened up in the Highlands. So the thing is, you know, again, this lack of transparency, and again, is it a lack of transparency, or is it the fact that they just don't actually know, which is even more terrifying? So I watched, I posted on my X actually a couple of weeks ago, a whistleblower had made a video, and in the video he said that when somebody's asylum fails, they get a letter to the hotel. And the letter says, you must leave this hotel in 2 days or 3 days or whatever it is. But nobody checks. So they leave because obviously there is nowhere else for them to go.
Right.
And then where do they go? No one checks that they've, you know, what do they expect them to do? Go and book their own Ryanair flight back to France? Or, you know, it's utter madness. So the whole system is completely out of control. Nobody knows what they're doing. The Home Office are completely overwhelmed. And actually, we know through a story that Alison Pearson did in the Telegraph that there are whistleblowers in the Home Office that are saying they're told, don't worry, just put them through, just get them out of the, you know, get them off the system. So who knows what's going on? It's an absolute car crash. And then in amongst all of this are girls and boys and women being assaulted and raped and murdered in some cases every single week. And they are the victims. You know, there are several victims. The victims of rape and sexual assault and murder, the victims of people who are rightly and justified to be on the council waiting list for a new home that are not going to get that because they're bringing in people from God knows where and giving them the homes. That, you know, then there's the victims of taxpayers like us who are funding this absolute nightmare. So there are so many people that the knock-on effect is just immense. We haven't got the money. The economy's tanking. You know, at what point does this government go, do you know what? I think we're really in a little bit of a state here. We need to do something really drastic. I don't know.
Exactly right. And you have done something really drastic. You, I understand, along with Maria Botel from Restore Britain, have sent a letter to Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. Tell us about that.
We did. So, you know, we've set up Pink Lady groups up and down the country. We've protested. We've stood outside hotels. And yes, people will say to us, what do you think that's going to do, standing outside a hotel? And of course, we're mothers and grandmothers. We're not violent.
Right.
We're not going to, you know, firebomb the hotel. Of course we're not. So we're standing there in, you know, with good intentions. We fly flags, you know, we talk to people, we do TV interviews. It's not getting us anywhere. It's not getting anyone anywhere. So what do we do now? So we decided we're going to write to Shabana Mahmood. We're going to say to her, as representatives of mothers and grandmothers in this country, we want you to meet with us to tell us what it is that you're actually going to do. Because it was about 6 months ago she was appointed into her position. She said that she was going to come down hard. She was going to stop the boats. I mean, this is after the Smash the Gangs debacle.
Right.
So she said she was going to do this, she was going to do that, and nothing's happened.
Right.
We've still got thousands of men coming through. Once this bad weather calms down, more boats will come.
Right.
So nothing is changing. So in our letter yesterday, we sent to her and said, we want to meet you. We want to understand what it is that you are planning to do. Is this are they just going to keep pouring in? Or they're putting CCTVs cameras up in Crowborough.
Right.
So, okay, so a CCTV captures something that's happened to a young girl, and then you go, oh, it's happened to this young girl. Oh, at least we've got it on camera. Well, stop it happening.
Right.
I don't want to see it after it's happened. I want it to stop. So we've basically put some stipulations in the letter that say, are you going to have curfews? Are these men going to be tagged? Are you going to have security to stop them wandering around the towns? What is the plan?
Yeah, right.
And you can't just keep ignoring us. We are half the population of this country. We want answers.
Yeah.
So let's see if she actually responds. I'm not holding my breath, but we will keep pushing until we get some kind of explanation.
Well, I mean, Keir Starmer wasn't very encouraging, was he, when he was doing his big interview rounds at the beginning of this week? On Sunday, he started off with Laura Kuenssberg, and she actually put to him that smashing the gangs hasn't worked. So what's he going to do next? And he didn't really have an answer. He didn't really have any kind of... And the only thing that's going to make it actually worse, and I don't want to depress you, but he wants to start up again with this youth mobility movement with the European Union. And everybody knows what's going to happen if that's the case. It will be people who come from other parts of the world who somehow find themselves in Europe and who then migrate to Britain because they're supposedly coming from a European country, supposedly to study or supposedly to work. And they'll just be coming here and they'll become a drain on the state. They'll become a welfare recipient. They'll get given free stuff. And it'll be once again to the detriment of every single kind of indigenous community here.
Yeah. Look, let's be clear, right? Keir Starmer has no idea what he is doing. He is so utterly out of control. And I would have more respect for him if he put his hands up and said, which he's never going to do, of course, but he said, you know what, I'm really struggling. We're struggling. We don't know what we're doing. We need help. Even if he said we need help, I don't know. But you can't keep burying your head in the sand. I mean, even the lefties and even the Labour are starting to say, mate, I think you're a bit out of control here. I don't think you've got a plan. Ultimately, no matter what you think about Trump, and obviously there's a lot of people that despise Trump, but at least the man does something. He says he'll do it and he does it. Starmer does nothing.
No.
He spouts out all this rhetoric and says, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't happen. Then when he's questioned, pressured, he backsteps and then diverts the question and starts talking about some other nonsense. It's terrifying for everyday people to watch how this country is crumbling on so many levels. And, ultimately, even if you're not the most, economic savvy of people, and I'm not saying I am by any means, but at some point you realise that the money coming in to the Treasury or the money coming into the public purse is less than what's going out. And then you have to look and think, what are we going to do? We have not got enough money to sustain the outgoings and the money that we are having to spend on people that aren't contributing. And it's not racism and it's not bigotry. It's just fact. We can't sustain the country as we are in the current state it's in. It just can't happen. So put aside all the danger and the risk around these men being unvetted, etc. They are a drain on the country, and so are all the people that they're going to start bringing in now, from students, etc., or their wives or children, whoever they're going to bring. It's just an absolute mess. The whole thing is a mess.
I know. And you say all of that, we may not be experts in finances, we may not be experts, but we all have to be in some way, shape or form to run your family, to run your household budget, to make sure that, you can't max out your credit card and then not bother paying it at the end of the month and go and borrow another, 55 million quid, which is what this government seems to do. It seems as though they've got no clue about how to run anything. And rather like you were saying about the amounts of money that we're told we don't have to spend on, anything that's actually wanted by the public, but they've still got billions and billions and billions to pay for people coming into the country and being put up for free.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I've read stories this week about people that are dying on the streets because they're homeless. So they're dying because they're dying of hypothermia.
Yeah.
Right. What's that about? Why are they not in a hotel? Then you've just said about the British transport and people being, their entitlement to freedom pass, etc., being taken away. Everything everything that is good and everything that was good about this country is being taken away from the people that contribute and have spent their lives contributing to the country to pay for, frankly, people that have never contributed and are never likely to. And that's a fact. And that is going to get to a point where the bubble is going to bubble and bubble and bubble, and it is going to explode because people have had enough. I have never known people in my life that have been so, skin is probably not the right word, but most people are struggling to pay their bills, to make ends meet. People aren't, I've said to people, are you going on holiday this year? I can't afford to go on holiday this year.
Yeah.
Of course they can't, because they're being taxed to the hilt. Our VAT is higher than anywhere else. Business rates are going through. I met a lady the other day locally who's a photographer. She's a fantastic photographer. Sophie Dunn, quick plug. She was a wedding photographer of the year. She was crying and saying to me, I am going to lose everything because I can't afford to keep paying the corporation tax, the NI. I've had to let people go. She had a student that she was training. She can't keep them on. There is no sense of economic growth. There's no sense of anything that is going to, make people feel that they are working towards a better life, because they're not. All we're doing is working towards making people have a better life that are coming in to the land of milk and honey. That's what they all think. But the people that are here actually creating the wealth have never been as worse off as they are now.
No,
it's heartbreaking.
It's really heartbreaking. I don't see where it ends either. What's next for the Pink Ladies? Have you got anything coming up that you can tell us about, Orla?
Yes. So on the 30th, so this is another, ridiculous scenario. So the guy that, allegedly, I have to say that, although I don't think I have to on this show, the guy that murdered Rhiannon White has an absolute animal who did the most horrific murder to that poor woman. He is in court on the 30th of January in Wolverhampton. It's been delayed and delayed because he has said that he's under 18. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. So rather than just get the dentist to check his teeth, there's been this debacle for months. So that's on the 30th of January. So the Pink Ladies are going there to the court to support Rhiannon White's family. I hope that we get a sensible output from that, and a sensible sentence, and not some absolute nonsense, because it was savage. So that's on the 30th. We're looking at doing various different things throughout the first part of this year. Obviously, a lot of our ladies are older, so I have to be careful about the weather. So I don't want them to stand out and get hypothermia. We're start the Bell Hotel on Sunday, this Sunday at 2:00. We're starting our protests again after the Christmas break. And then obviously we're looking at this, hoping that this letter gets us somewhere, and that we get some kind of recognition from the Home Office saying that, we do recognise that you've got concerns. We recognise that you are, concerned about your children, which, should be the first priority of any government, to look after its young and vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, other than that, things will be on our socials. We're doing protests up and down the country. We've got our ladies in Kent that are there every week in Crowborough. So, we're just going to keep pushing, Mike, and hope that we can get some kind of recognition from the government and try and get somewhere. I don't know. I don't know. You know what? We all have the same momentum. We all have the same concerns, and it's hard to keep going, because you do look and think, are we wasting our time?
Yeah, it's really hard, because there's also those horrible people from the left out there trying to ruin your reputations, trying to make out that you're saying things which are racist and all of that. Absolutely ridiculous. But listen, Orla, great to see you. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, my love. Great show.
I know it's a bit early, but we're going to get you on a lot over the course of time. Maybe we get you in the studio at some point as well. Orla Minahan, thank you so much.
Take care.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant woman. Orla Minahan, you can find her on social media. You can find her on X, of course, as well. I've just had a message from Laura, who says on the subject of water in Tunbridge Wells, it's been kept quiet, but parts of Tunbridge Wells don't have water again over the last couple of days. And then she says, my son's school is closed today as a result. Well, there's an awful lot of things closing down at the moment. When I come back to you, and this message timed at 8:35, we're going to have to hear some more from Edward Hughes, the newsman. But before we do that, that as well. I've got some news on the storm because it looks as though lots of people are having trouble driving around in their cars because guess what? The local councils aren't bothering to grit the streets, probably because they haven't got any money, because they've spent it all on something else. This is the Mike Graham Show. It is the true and real home of common sense. We'll be back with Hughes the News after this.
Hello, this is the news with Edward Hughes. Before I get to the news, I would like to say thank you for the kind messages and requests for photos I've received. In your face, BBC. Everyone loves a rear-facing selfie. Give me a pout. In today's news, ongoing severe winter weather dominates with widespread snow and ice disruptions, including over 1,000 school closures across the UK and amber warnings for heavy snow in parts of Scotland. Travel chaos on roads and rails continues alongside health alerts for the cold snap. Parliament resumes with scrutiny of bills like the Diego Garcia military base legislation. Storm Goretti, what a ludicrous name, brings heavy snow and strong winds. Met Office warnings for snow and ice persist across much of the UK, with amber alerts in parts of Scotland and risks of further accumulations. I bet the Met Office forecasters are working from home. The government demands action on Grok AI deepfakes. Ministers call Elon Musk's X platform appalling for sexualized deepfake content, urging urgent measures to address the issue. An AI character, imagine that. I'll drink to that. Bottoms up. Retail boosts. Next raises profit forecast after strong Christmas sales, topping expectations amid bumper festive trading. Scotland's Justice Secretary cleared. Investigation finds Angela Constance unintentionally breached ministerial code. Unintentionally, right? A Hero Posthumous Award has been considered. Man who died attempting sea rescue in Witham Sea could receive recognition. In today's sports news, Premier League action resumes post-winter break with key matches amid transfer window speculation. Build up to the Six Nations rugby intensifies with major events like the Australian Open tennis starting soon. Chelsea's new head coach Liam Rosenior prepares for upcoming fixtures. And now to the weather. It's cold, I can tell you. Shrinkage temperatures. Persistent cold spell with yellow and amber warnings for snow, ice and potential further accumulations up to 15 centimetres. In northern Scotland, freezing temperatures nationwide, icy conditions overnight into morning, and wintry showers spreading south. Disruptions likely with risk of power cuts in affected areas. And finally, the poll for the name of the Mike Graham Show continues. The contenders include 1. Heron Mirren, 2. Heron of Troy 3, Eva Heron 4, Richard the Bird, and 5, my suggestion, Hugh the Heron. Please go to the Mike Graham Show on YouTube and check out the poll. And remember to like and subscribe. More news later if I can be bothered.
Yeah, more news later, if I can be bothered, says Hughes the News. That is, of course, Edward Hughes. Nothing to do with, and not to be confused with Hugh Edwards, former newsreader at the BBC, although they do seem to sound as if they come from the same part of the world. He's been very, very controversial, has Mr. Hughes. And in fact, he's just been in touch with us to say, you know, he wants to know what the public, what the great public of the Mike Graham Show think of him. And so I'm going to read a few of the messages that have come in. David says this: the AI Hughes needs a designer chin beard, just like the crisp packet pundit. What do you mean AI? Perkins says, yes, Edward Hughes is definitely boring. I think he needs to walk the plank. He's not going to like that one. Martin says, can Edward give us a warm and fluffy message at the end, like a new panda bear has been born at Chester Zoo? Actually, that's a good point. Maybe what we should do is, because you have to get, the and finally that they always used to do on the old on the news. I mean, like we would have done it today with probably. Was it Molly or Poppy as the best name for a female dog? Apparently, the most popular. Patricia says, loving the show, Mike. Edward Hughes is going to be a winner. He's obviously a very funny guy. I do agree with the previous comment that he does need to pay attention, however, to punctuation. You won't like that. Ian says, Mike, I think Edward Hughes is your son. Certainly not. Absolutely not. My sons are too busy to be able to work for me, unfortunately. Edward is the best news reader, says SR. I love that he's running the poll. Brilliant addition to your show, Mike. I think he is. I think we've hit a real winner here with Edward Hughes, you know, because there's nobody else like him in the entire media landscape of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And Wales, in fact. So listen, Edward Hughes is definitely here to stay. And if you've got any more messages or anything to suggest that he should be doing that he's not doing, by all means, let us know. And also, if he starts messaging any of you, we'd like to know about. We'd like to know about that as well, because we told him, we've absolutely warned him off that. He can't do that at all. One story that I do want to bring you up to date with, though, is Storm Goretti. I don't know where they get this name from. I mean, it doesn't sound like anything other than, I don't know, a small sort of Italian town or something. Goretti, Goretti. What the hell is going on? But apparently there's a lot of anger out there today because a lot of roads remain ungritted. Councils up and down the country have not been putting salt down, not been putting grit down. Commuters are slipping all over the pavements in platforms of trains. People are being put into hospital as a result. Britain's endured a dangerously icy commute this morning, is what my report says here, after more snow and rain was followed by another night of sub-zero temperatures ahead of a major storm. What I can tell you is that it was a lot warmer this morning when I came out of the house. Yesterday it was -5 and there was an awful lot of frost all over the car. This morning there was no frost on the car, but it had been raining quite heavily overnight. The Met Office fears people will be injured from slips and falls on icy surfaces and issued a yellow ice warning for almost all of the UK, which runs until 10 a.m. today. Yellow snow, by the way, is something that those of you who are as old as I am might remember was a song by Frank Zappa. You know, watch out where the huskies go, and don't you eat that yellow snow, was the line. Now it's a yellow warning, apparently, running until 10 a.m. today. Clear skies developed across the country overnight after a band of rain cleared to the southeast, leaving icy patches on untreated roads, pavements and cycle paths. I mean, I wouldn't be cycling in this weather because you're pretty certain to hit a piece of black ice. Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire road policing units tweeted a video of an officer slipping over on the ice with the caption, "Icy conditions are a disaster waiting to happen. He won't be applying for dancing on ice anytime soon." The police really don't need to be funny. I mean, that's not what we need. I'll tell you what, though, the two big stories that we talked about a little bit earlier on the police front, one on the front page of the Daily Mail, and one, of course, on the front page of the Telegraph. The one on the front page of the Daily Mail beggars belief, right? Police blunder defies belief. A family spent 3 weeks grieving after being wrongly told their teenage son had died in a car crash, while a second family was told their son survived when he was actually dead. Right? These are officers from South Yorkshire Police, only discovered that they'd made the staggering mistake when the badly injured boy woke up in a hospital on a Sunday and told nurses, "I'm Trevor." Right? Basically, they'd mixed up the identity of survivor Trevor Wynn, 17 years old, with his friend, 18-year-old crash victim Joshua Johnson. I mean, this is possibly one of the worst things that could ever happen to anyone. Imagine being told that your child had died and it turns out he was actually still alive. What's even worse is that another set of parents were told that their son was still alive and it turned out that he was actually dead. It's just incredible. Joshua Johnson's parents were given the heartbreaking news that there had been a terrible error. Just ridiculous. Imagine being told that your son survived a car crash and then to be told by the police actually we made a mistake and he's not alive. Dear God. Valerie has sent a very nice reminder in. Like and subscribe, guys. It's free. Yeah, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. You don't have to pay any money. You can subscribe to the premium channel if you want, which does cost money, but you don't need to. But the fact is, if you can push our subscription numbers up, that'll be great. And if you like all of the stuff that you see, that will also help us. There was something about the storm there, but I just missed it. Maybe I could get it back again. Storm Goretti was named by the bloody French. Typical, was it? Why are they not naming storms? That's definitely enough clocks, says Vix. Well, you can never have enough clocks. As I said yesterday, we're going to try and get one that goes backwards because that's always good. I don't know whether you think that that would be a good idea. The other story, of course, which is absolutely beggaring belief for an awful lot of people in terms of the police, is the state of the West Midlands Police, because the West Midlands Police are under a massive cloud because documents published yesterday revealed that they were warned beforehand that locals in the predominantly Muslim community of Aston, around Aston Villa football ground in Birmingham, were planning to arm themselves if fans from Maccabi Tel Aviv turned up to watch a European football game, right? Despite receiving intelligence warnings of local hostility towards the visitors based on their nationality, the force backed a ban for visiting fans. The ultimate decision was made to ban the visiting fans by Birmingham City Council's Safety Advisory Group, which includes 2 councillors who called for the boycott of Maccabi Tel Aviv. I mean, just extraordinary, isn't it? Bit of a super chat coming from John195. Starmer's toast, so he's now focusing on his legacy. Well, what could his legacy possibly be? I mean, he was busy telling everyone who asked at the weekend that he was going to be around in 2027. I don't think so. Super chat from Leon, who says, appreciate, Leon Hughes, actually, no relation to Edward Hughes, are you? Appreciate your efforts in bringing your show to the people. Great job. Well, we're doing our level best. And as I say, if you've got any suggestions or any ideas for things that we're not doing as well as we could be doing, then by all means, let us know. You can find us on Twitter, on X, of course, which is my particular person. We haven't actually got a show Twitter page. I don't know whether we should have one of those. Maybe we should. There are Facebook groups as well that you can send messages to, or you can find me on Facebook. You can find us on the YouTube chat, of course. My local council says Frontside Bus has posted myth-busting social media posts on why it looks like they haven't been gritting. Do they really think we will fall for that? Yeah, I know. And Vacation says, yes, it was very slippery this morning, taking the missus to the station, a couple of vehicles in ditches, so please do take care. Mike, massive respect to you holding your own and building your own setup without the fire-breathing dragon mainstream media burning you. Big up MG. Absolutely right. I've just been listening to somebody else, and well, hang on, I'm going to get that. A bit early for a bedtime story. What will it take for you to say enough is enough of what is happening to your country? Well, Goretti is an Irish woman's name, says Daniel. Is it? Doesn't sound like it to me. Couple of more people. Antonia saying, Mike, get a Union Jack for the studio. And lots of love coming in for Orla, who was the last guest. It says, what a lovely lady Orla is. I totally agree with all she says. And Clumsy Dragon says, I think we need an angry Glaswegian newsreader with a bit more gumption than that Welsh geezer. Listen, Edward Hughes won't be pleased to hear that, but do keep giving us your thoughts. Do keep giving us your views. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Jasmine Birtle. She's a financial expert, and she might be giving some pretty good advice about what you should be doing to safeguard your finances coming into this new year. Because the one thing you can be bleeding sure of is that Keir Starmer and Rachel Thieves, Richard III, are going to be coming after you for more taxes, more money. Everything's going up in price, even though they keep telling us that they're tackling the cost of living. Well, how exactly are they doing that? This is the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to 8:48. We're almost at the 9 o'clock witching hour. And of course, don't forget that we will have, once again, an after show today for Substack subscribers. And that's going to be in the company of Andrew Montford from the Net Zero organisation. Well, it's actually against the Net Zero organisation. Net Zero Watch is from. And Andrew's going to be talking to us about Ed Miliband and his plan to supposedly make our energy prices go down rather than up. But it's a losing battle, I'm afraid. That's all coming up after 9 o'clock. Meanwhile, we'll be back after this.
Conservatives are now the party of high tax. On their watch, the tax burden is the highest in 70 years. I worked as an economist at the Bank of England before entering politics. I know what it takes to run a successful economy.
So, we'll be talking, of course, an awful lot about money during the course of this show, every single morning live from 7 a.m. The Mike Graham Show, the real home of common sense, and somebody that I've known for a very long time and who's spoken an awful lot of common sense over the many years that I've known her is Jasmine Birtle. Jasmine, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the new Mike Graham Show.
Hello, it's very exciting to be here. Nice to have you. Nice to have you in this format.
Yes, it's great to see you. We've got plenty to talk about, Jasmine, because as we sort of enter the beginning of a new year, we've got Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves telling us all how they're tackling the cost of living and how, you know, suddenly we're all going to be feeling richer very soon and everything's going to start, renewal is going to start happening and you're going to be so surprised and pleased at how much better your life is going to be. I don't think anyone's buying it. Do you?
No, nobody is. As you say, you know, we are having problems in every area. My particular annoyance, frankly, is, sorry, I'm just moving my camera. My particular annoyance is the tax burden. we did have inflation, horrendous inflation, particularly during the COVID years. I
Hmm.
mean, who would have thought that shutting down production for everything and keeping people in their homes so that they wanted to consume more would increase inflation, together with, of course, getting the printing presses going unbelievably 24 hours, 24/7. So we haven't come back from that. Inflation has improved since then, but it hasn't got back to what it should be. It's still way too high. But what particularly irritates me is the level of taxation that we got and what we're not getting for that tax. It does feel that this government particularly is taxing the productive people in order to give it to the unproductive. And while they say they're the party of growth, yeah, right, they are doing everything they can to manacle growth by taxing businesses. They hate small businesses. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Well, this morning we're looking at the front pages and it's all about pubs again, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
pubs have suffered so much in the past, 4 or 5 years. I think there's been one pub a day closing for about the best part of the last 4 or 5 years. Publicans have been saying to us that, we're really struggling, alcohol duties going up, business rates are going up. And in fact, we've got Tom Kerridge. I don't know if we can play that, Pooch, can we? I don't know if you've seen this interview with Tom Kerridge. An incredible, I mean, to be fair, Tom Kerridge is a sort of a celebrity chef who owns a couple of pubs, one in Marlow. He actually wanted the Labour government to get in and he sort of campaigned on their behalf. Now he's rather regretting it. But have a look at how much money they now want to charge him to just run his pub.
You got that 15%. Mine is around about 115% on I've got 4 spaces, 4 pubs, and all of them are going up at, pretty much over 100%.
Over 100,
over 100%,
even with the relief that the Treasury says it's providing.
Yeah, so the relief comes in. That works. That's to help you get to that end number.
Correct.
So it's not relief that's taken away. It's actually we're just softening the blow. It's still killing you off in 2-3 years' time. So the packages that are helpful are only helpful for a short period of time. The end result is, for example, my Butcher's Tap and Grill, which is a very small little pub boozer in the middle of Marlow, does burgers, fries, sport on the telly. It's not Michelin star. It's not generating huge revenues. And if we weren't in there, it's the sort of pub that an owner landlord would have, live upstairs, come downstairs, work 70 hours a week, loving that kind of space. The rates at the minute are £50,000 a year. That's gone up to £124,000 a year. So a £74,000 increase in business rates. Now, if you were the owner of that business and you lived upstairs, that's over all of your wages gone. You live upstairs. Your rent is paid by living on premises. So many pubs operate like that, whether they're small little town centre ones or countryside ones. Most operators, most landlords live on site. They operate. They make a little bit of cash, maybe around 40, 50 grand a year. That if they're lucky, the moment the business rates have gone, that's it. What's the point in being open?
And that's the question that so many small business owners are saying to themselves. What's the point of being open?
Exactly. What is the point of any of it? And what I feel it is that there's a philosophy. It's like a religion that this government has, that the Labour Party particularly has, that you have to just spend. You've got to spend on government. Government, just in the last year and a half, has ballooned. The amount of civil servants that we have, the amount of government that we have has increased. They've been spending on that. They've been spending on people who are just sitting at home. We have 9.5 million people who are economically inactive. So they're not working and they're not looking for work. We have another 1.5 million who are actually looking for work. But that 9.5 million are needing to be paid for. Plus, of course, we have the burden of the state pension and, of course, the NHS, which are huge costs. And the idea constantly, it seems, is to spend more. That's the answer to all questions. And the only thing that they can do, that they can see to do in order to do this, is to tax those who are producing money. But, there comes a point where, as we can hear, people are just going, well, what's the point? I know a number of people who are just not working because of this.
Right. And I know loads of people who are in business, for example, who are just shrinking the business and getting rid of people because they don't want to pay the extra national insurance because the margins are not there for them. So many people I also know who have left the country, and it's not, it's not just a sort of, a right-wing theory. 287,000 people, as far as we know, have left the country in the last 12 months because they just simply can't afford to do so because they don't want to pay punitive taxes. They don't want to pay mansion taxes. They don't want to see their council tax going up. People are telling me that they're getting their new water bills 25% up on last year. I mean, how on earth Rachel Reeves, the Richard III as we call her, and Keir Starmer can say in any way, shape or form that they're tackling the cost of living? It's just nonsense. I mean, I'm reading in the Telegraph this morning, British investors pulled £6.71 billion out of global trading last year, thanks to Reeves's budget.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the problem. And in fact, on the point of people leaving the country, I interviewed Elliot Keck from the Taxpayers Alliance the other day, and he said, whereas it used to be that it was 30%, that the top 1% paid 30% of the tax, it's now 26% because quite a lot of them have left. And of course, as people like you and I keep saying, whatever you think about rich people, whether you like them or you don't, the fact is, if they leave, they take their tax money with them, and we have to fill the gap, the increasing gap. And that's, I keep saying this, and I'd like to keep hammering it home because we need those rich people to stay, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to give them some kind of incentive because a lot of people, and I confess to be one of them because I'm getting up to that sort of age of what to do with your pension, or what can you do with your pension to kind of safeguard it. And it's not that clear at the moment, really, what is going to happen in the next 12 months because these government ministers have proven themselves to be incredibly greedy and incredibly sort of grasping. You get the sense that if you've done well for yourself and you've saved some money in a pension pot, they're going to come and tax it again somehow.
Well, absolutely, yes. And to be fair, this started with the Tories because the problem that you have now with people who are on the state pension, and maybe they've got a little bit extra as well coming from something else, it means that they are already going above the tax threshold. And as Rishi Sunak started the freezing of the tax threshold at £12,570. So if in a year, and this includes your state pension, if in a year you make more than 12,570,000, then anything that's above that threshold is going to be taxed, which is particularly irritating because we have the triple lock. So as you know, the triple lock means that the state pension goes up every year by either 2.5% or the rate of inflation or the rate of wage growth, whichever is the highest, which is very nice for people on the state pension. But what that's meant is that way more, thousands and thousands more people this year have been pushed into paying tax because of that increase. So they give you with one hand and they take away with another.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. And for people who have got, and I know this is a very wide-ranging question, which probably requires a very wide-ranging answer specifically, but for people that have got private pensions, if they're lucky enough to have got one that they've managed to accrue over the course of time, what's financial advice are you giving people as to what they should do with it? Should they put it somewhere where the government can't get it? Should they move it into some other kind of investment? What should they do?
Oh, it's a good point because yes, as you say, it's a big issue because you're talking about the rest of your life that needs to be paid for. The first thing that I tend to say to people is this is a time where it's worth spending money on a financial advisor because you're talking about 30, could be 50 years. Literally, it depends when you retire and how long you last, but you're talking decades. So, I would at this point consider having a session with a financial advisor. It could cost, the first hour doesn't cost you, but once they start doing things, it could cost you a couple of grand. So keep that in mind. But firstly, definitely take your 25% tax-free out. Once you're 55, it'll go up to 57 in a couple of years' time. But once you're 55, you can take out 25% tax-free for nothing. Stick it on the dogs if you want to. Do what you like with it. Again, I've got friends who have put it in. There are some vehicles that will pay you a tax-free amount every month, and that's worth again talking to a financial advisor about. And then really it depends on how much you are wanting to get in each month, each year. But I think it's one of the fundamentals of investing is to spread your bets, diversify your portfolio, but basically means spread your bets. So it's a good idea to have some of the money in one thing, some in another. You might like to have a bit in an annuity, which is not a terribly exciting thing, but at least it guarantees you a certain income until you pop your clogs. And then others in more exciting elements.
Right. Well, Jasmine, listen, great advice. Thank you so much. We'll hopefully be talking to you an awful lot in the coming weeks and months as the times get tougher and things get harder to do. Jasmine Birtles, brilliant to see you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Jasmine Birtles being the last guest of the day. We're coming right to the end of the show now. And I've got this from the Ben Ratch, who's put a goal on the YouTube channel. Before the show ends, Mike and his team have done a great job in just a few days. Audio sorted, everything much more sleek, great transitions. It can only get better. Well done, guys. Well done to all of you. Thank you, all of you, for watching. Thank you for listening. And look out for the after show, which is coming right up after this with Andrew Montford from Net Zero Watch. Loads to talk about, including Ed Miliband and why he is such a plank. And don't forget, despite the fact that there's many of them out there, don't you be a plank.